Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in today. My name is Rachel. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist with Open Hand Atlanta. And so today we're going to be talking about how food can be used as medicine to heal our body. We'll be covering a few different topics for our presentation today. So we'll start with defining exactly what a therapeutic diet is, discussing who might need one, and going over examples of those therapeutic diets and what to do if we are told to follow one when we're in our healthcare provider's office. So just feel free to answer this to yourself, no need to say anything out loud. But has a doctor or a healthcare professional ever told you that you need to follow a special diet for whatever reason? Maybe we feel overwhelmed, confused, maybe even motivated to make changes for our everyday habits. And so there's lots and lots of resources out there to follow a therapeutic diet. So just wanting to kind of give the general overview of what that looks like. So let's start with defining exactly what a therapeutic diet is. So here we've got a multiple choice question. So we have A, eating only during certain times of the day, B, cutting out entire food groups, or C, incorporating eating patterns to prevent or treat a disease. So what do we think that is? Yeah, so that answer is going to be C. So a therapeutic diet is incorporating eating patterns to prevent or treat a disease. And so a healthy diet is really important for everyone. But sometimes when we have certain conditions, we need to focus on specific nutrients and foods that have those nutrients. So really knowing about our health conditions can really be the answer to understanding if a therapeutic diet is right for you. There are a few different conditions that can be improved by emphasizing certain foods over others. And this list is not exhaustive, but it can include diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, food allergies, gastrointestinal disease, and dysphagia, or problems with chewing and swallowing. So we may need to adjust, decrease, increase certain nutrients like fat, carbohydrates, protein, maybe some vitamins or minerals like calcium, potassium, phosphorus, or other food components that are really important like saturated fats, added sugar, and salt or sodium. And so here we have a list of diets that we may have heard of or seen on the news, talked to with a friend, whatever the case may be. And what they consistently do is that these ones can be used together or separate in order to help those chronic conditions. So, for example, a consistent carbohydrate diet can be used for diabetes management. A DASH diet or a low fat diet is great for heart disease management. A renal diet is for kidney disease. Allergy modifications and gluten-free diet for any sort of allergies, food allergies. A FODMAP diet helps with gastrointestinal disease, and a mechanically altered diet is helpful for dysphagia symptoms, again, that problem with chewing or swallowing. So some of them can be very similar in their nature, but as you can see, there are lots and lots of different therapeutic diets out there, so it's really important to talk to your healthcare provider or a dietitian to find out which one is the best for you. And this list is not exhaustive. This can go on and on and on. These are just the most common. So while these diets can be specific in some of their recommendations, they often have lots of key principles in common. So each of them targets specific nutrients, but overall generally recommend foods like fruits, veggies, whole grains, and heart-healthy fats. And typically we want to have less salt, added sugar, saturated fat, and trans fat, as these can be known to be damaging for our health. And so next we're going to transition to discuss some specific examples of what therapeutic diets can look like. So next, let's move on to diabetes diet. A diabetes management is very individualized and can get very complex. But generally, what we want to recommend are foods that are consistent in carbohydrates. And so there is no one food that those with diabetes should or should not eat. And the goal is not to eliminate carbs completely, but eating nutrient-rich, complex carbohydrates throughout the day is what's very, very important here. We want to make sure we're keeping our blood sugars nice and stable as best as we can. And so complex carbohydrates are those that are whole grains or have high amounts of fiber in them to help manage our blood sugars. And so we can use what's called the plate method as a blueprint to help understand and visualize a balanced meal to help again with that blood sugar management. So again, first we want to think about half of that dinner plate. Consider that being your non-starchy veggies. Thinking about the other quarter of our plate as our fiber-rich carbohydrates, maybe like your rice, your potatoes, your beans. And then the last quarter of our plate as your lean protein source. So maybe it's your eggs, again, beans, chicken, fish, whatever that protein source looks like for you. So again, overall, this diet is really about balance, portion control, monitoring our blood sugars, physical activity and movement, hydration, and stress management are very, very important when it comes to diabetes management. And people with diabetes can really eat all foods. It is absolutely fine. All right, so next let's move on to diets for heart health. And so these can be followed if you have any sort of heart disease, heart failure, high cholesterol, and or high blood pressure even as well. And so the first diet for heart health is called the DASH diet, and DASH is short for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. And as we mentioned before, the DASH diet focuses on increasing nutrients like magnesium, potassium, calcium, protein, and fiber. And it recommends decreasing the amount of foods that we eat that are high in salt, saturated fat, and trans fat, as these can be known to be damaging to our arteries that carry the blood. And so in order to protect our heart as much as possible, we can also focus on the types of fats that we're eating. So thinking more about healthy fats when we're planning our meals, incorporating more oils instead of butter or shortening, having fatty fish like salmon or trout, nuts, seeds, avocados, excellent sources of that unsaturated fat, again, helpful for our heart health. So overall, a heart-healthy diet includes foods that are your fruits, your veggies, your oils, your whole grains, beans, low-fat dairy, fish, avocados, nuts, and seeds. And it's really great to just think about sneaking in foods in these categories that, again, are helpful for our heart. So next we'll take a look at a renal diet for kidney disease or renal disease. So a renal diet is typically recommended for people with chronic kidney disease on hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis. So the kidneys are an organ in our bodies that are in charge of filtering out waste. And when our kidneys aren't working at that full capacity, we can modify our eating patterns to reduce the workload that our kidneys do to allow our bodies to continue filter out the toxins and waste in our blood. And so these diets can vary greatly depending on the stage of kidney disease. So typically, a renal diet is one that's low in salt or sodium, phosphorus, and potassium. It also emphasizes the importance of consuming high-quality protein and oftentimes can limit fluids as well. And some patients may also need to limit calcium too, just depending on what their needs are. So overall, a renal diet can be a complex recommendation to follow, but generally this is what's recommended. So there's a lot to it, definitely. So next we'll take a look at a gluten-free diet. So gluten is a protein that's found in wheat, barley, rye, and other wheat products. A gluten-free diet is one where these grains and any of their products are completely avoided. One particular reason for this diet is for an autoimmune disorder that's called celiac disease. And celiac disease is when our body identifies gluten as a foreign invader, triggering our immune system, which damages the lining of our small intestine. And so over time, this damage prevents the absorption of nutrients from food. So it's really, really important to avoid it. Okay. So however, with this diet, there are many alternative grains and grain products that can be substituted. So it also includes many naturally gluten-free foods like fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, meats, and dairies. And so as you can see here on this list, there are lots of gluten-free foods that we still can consume. So, a mechanical soft diet, moving on, is an eating pattern with smoother textures that are easier to chew and to swallow. Again, this is for dysphagia. And so, meals are cooked and chopped or blended to achieve the right textures. And softer foods like dairy items, soups, smoothies, eggs, and cooked fruits and veggies are emphasized over the crunchier, sticky, dry foods like nuts, crackers, chips, etc. This is just, again, for that ease and make it easier to chew and swallow, not spending so much energy doing so. There are lots of different levels for chewing and swallowing difficulties. So, really making sure you're talking again with your healthcare provider or a speech language pathologist to see where these foods may be most appropriate for your condition. And so here on the page here, we've got kind of a diagram of different levels of consistencies for both food and drinks. So now we're going to transition into understanding your specific needs and to think about what to do if you're at a primary care office and you're told to follow a certain diet. So sometimes we might hear oversimplified blanket statements that are given quickly or without any context or explanation. So it's really, really important to make sure you're asking your doc why, or to expand, and if they can refer you to a dietitian or a nutrition professional to better explain what they're meaning. And so here we have 5 examples of what we may hear when we go to the doctor's office. So we have, don't eat anything white, cut out all salt from your diet, don't drink your calories, stop eating junk food, avoid all processed foods. These are really, really, oversimplified blanket statements. So let's go ahead and dive a bit deeper into what these statements mean. And so we can really try and understand what our provider is trying to tell us if they have given us these instructions. So again, the left are the same phrases. So we have our don't eat anything white, cut out all salt from your diet, don't drink your calories, stop eating junk food, avoid all processed foods. And on the right side, we have our flexible, balanced, focusing on what we can do to manage more of our health. So for example, instead of don't eat anything white, perhaps that means try more whole grains. Whole grains being your brown rice, your whole wheat pasta, sneaking in more quinoa, for example, whole wheat bread, things like that. It doesn't mean don't eat cauliflower, don't eat bananas, don't have those foods that are white in nature but have great nutrition value. The next one, for cut out all salt from your diet. This doesn't mean never have salt ever again. Our bodies still do need salt. But maybe they're saying instead, try not to flavor your food with salt. Maybe enjoy cooking and using more herbs, citrus, other ways to flavor our food besides salt. Next, don't drink your calories. Maybe that just means, focus on making your water more fun. Thinking about ways to hydrate better. Sometimes sugary beverages can be dehydrating. So maybe we can just work on hydration a different way. Stop eating junk food means maybe add more variety to your diet. Let's go ahead and sneak in some fruits, veggies, other great foods where we can that help our health, that also taste good and make us happy. No need to cut out any food completely. It is not a sustainable way. And last, avoid all processed foods. So maybe they actually mean just explore different snack options. There's lots of really great processed foods out there. Peanut butter, hummus, whole wheat crackers. Processed food does not necessarily mean bad, right? So maybe just exploring different snack options, meaning trying some more nutrient-dense options to get a little bit more bang for your buck in terms of nutrition. And this is because we likely spend more time meal planning and making our grocery list than we do talking to our doctor. And so really just understanding that nutrition is individualized, it's a case-by-case basis, and there's lots of things that go into it. So this is why we really want to make sure we are taking the time to understand and really carry out what they're trying to ask. And so that in part means to ask your providers questions. You want to know as much about your condition and recommended diet as possible. So the first one, why is it being recommended? Is there a certain reason that maybe you didn't, or maybe you missed, or want to make sure that you're understanding? Is this a short-term or a long-term recommendation? Maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a month, maybe it's, lifelong. So how long do I need to follow this diet for? And our last question here is, what are some trusted resources I can use to assist in making these changes? So we can do further research on our own and really get a good idea of the right information out there. So here we have a list of a lot of different organizations that we can generally trust when it comes to education, recipes, blog posts, things like that. And so if you need to look up information while you're at home, take a look at these websites or these organizations and their resources that they have. So this can include our American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, National Kidney Foundation, Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, Center of Disease Control and Prevention, or even the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics for further information. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to my contact information on the slide. My name is Rachel Burton. My phone number is 404-482-1047, or you can email me at rburton.openhandatlanta.org. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.